But here are the things that I see in great schools. First of all, great schools of character know what they stand for. So they've got really, really clear values in place. And they translate these values into a set of actionable behaviours, which is really what the character looks like. It's very difficult to measure character, but what you can do is you can measure the consistency and the quality and the frequency of behaviours that correlate to the character that demonstrates um, uh, the values you want. Let me give you an example of that. So let's take my favourite value, which is integrity. Nobody knows what integrity means. It's even worse than the word tolerance. Tolerance is a hard enough word. Integrity, what does it mean? I mean, people give you answers around integrity, which can range from anything. The thing you do when nobody's looking. Well, integrity is also the thing you do when everybody is looking. Integrity means, sometimes they'll say, doing the right thing. Well, yes, but that's not technically integrity. Integrity, if you look at the mathematical definition of it, is where all of the parts of the whole are in the right place. That's so when an object has its integrity, it means everything in its right place. And that's my Radiohead quote for the hour. So everything in its right place. So a person of integrity, their values line up with their intentions, which line up with their actions, which line up with their output. So how would you describe that as a set of behaviours? It could be something like, I know what I value. I try hard to make sure that my intentions align with my values. My actions can be predicted based on my intentions, and I achieve what I set out to achieve. So you put all of that together and you've got a set of behaviours that we can now track. And we can do a version of it for little people, we can do a version of it for big people, and we can do a version of it for people in between. So what great schools will do is they will construct a framework where values become actionable behaviours, which are then measured in place. And they do this work in depth. So there is that framework piece. Then there will be a piece around how we teach for character. And that teaching for character will involve both content. So a great school doesn't teach Macbeth by doing rhythm, rhyme, meter, plot, characterisation, etc., for their own sake. A great school teaches Macbeth by asking questions like, is this the way a king should behave? Right. Should men and women relate to each other in the way that Macbeth and Lady Macbeth do? Is it right that Macbeth gained power? These are the questions we actually should be asking. And then we build in all that rhythm, rhyme, meter, characterisation, plot, etc., into that. So if we ask the right questions to address the content, that's a great thing to do. But then we also need to remember, as I intimated earlier, that there are pedagogies that bring out different types of character along the way. And you'll know this yourself from a class. In any class you do, if you want kids to extend and stretch, and you've just battered them with 35 minutes of hard slog in other areas, by the time they get to the creative bit at the end, there's no energy left. It's like a head of department meeting. You'll have sat in school, you probably run meetings like this. I regret every head of department meeting I ever ran. All right. If there's one thing I could change in my career, it would be the heads of department meetings I ran, because they were so procedurally correct and bureaucratically amazing. We got this, that, and the other done. But with 5 minutes to go, then I would ask the important question of, so what do you reckon we should be teaching to year 8? And by which time they're just looking at me going, are you serious? Like, you've just grilled us on assessment nonsense, and now you want us to talk about the big things that really matter? And of course, I got it wrong, didn't I? What I should have done was start with the big question and then work my way into it. Or I should have had a cycle of meetings where we do the detail work, which then leads to the more conceptual work subsequently. Anyway, those are the sorts of things that I think great schools do. They have frameworks, they have pedagogies. The way teachers relate to each other matches the way they do the work with kids, and they measure what they do by tracking behaviours, and they ask kids to report out on those significantly.